Human beings are often restricted. We find ourselves limited in some way or another by others, our environment, society, and most importantly, ourselves. In many contexts and situations, there are imposed limits from a variety of sources that are placed upon people that restrict them from truly expressing the way they feel and from leaping into life with 2 feet. A tyrannical boss, deeply rooted insecurities, posturing, and niceties. We live in a world that is, and has been, extremely difficult to truly be yourself in. This is just the way of the world. You can't always say or do what you truly feel in day-to-day situations because you'd reap the consequences in some way. It makes sense, and these limitations do help society to function, but they can also make life less enjoyable than it would be otherwise. We long for total control and expression, and we don't always have it, and that is part of why wholehearted, passionate, flamboyant, fiery free spirits are so enticing in fiction. They are unrestricted, not because their societies don't have these limitations, but because when all is said and done, they have the conviction to rise above them and live life their own way. Oberyn Martell is one of my absolute favorite characters in the Song of Ice and Fire book series and the Game of Thrones TV series, and a big reason for that is because he is a breath of fresh air that contrasts virtually every character in the story with his personality, demeanor, behavior, and the way he goes about carrying out his motivations. For the characters in the series who are even a little bit accustomed to the political landscape and inner machinations of the setting, it is clear that deception and dishonesty are essential for meaningful survival, at the top of the food chain at the very least. Characters like Varys, Littlefinger, Tyrion, Roose Bolton, and Walder Frey hide their intentions beneath countless layers of lies or half-truths to get ahead, because most are selfish, and because one misstep could spell disaster to oneself with regards to one's plans. Even Ned Stark, who is one of the most honest characters in the story, is consistently shown in the books to be biting his tongue in day-to-day situations in order to adhere to the climate of his political environment. That isn't to say that literally everyone lives dishonestly, but there is a clear pattern that Oberyn naturally opposes. Of course, his royal status enables him to be this liberated in a way that common folk would never be able to, but the point stands. He lives with reckless abandon, loves with a full heart, seeks pleasure and fulfillment, and does what he likes for all to see. Not everyone in the story is total opposite to Oberyn, because he is similar to characters like Bronn and Renly in certain ways, but the specifics and nuances of his character really help him stand out. Characterized by this liberated spirit, heart, and honesty, Oberyn is free in a lot of ways we tend to wish we were, in a setting and environment much more stifling than most of our own, and there is an element of impressiveness in that draws people to characters of his ilk, in an almost vicarious way. He represents true human desire, so I quickly found myself liking Oberyn for what he stood for in this sense, and started rooting for him from the start. He feels, he doesn't hold back, and he regrets nothing. Guided by the heart, he indulges in whatever pleasures he desires, stands up for what he believes in, and protects the honor of those he loves. And despite huge personal risk, he essentially declares war on Tywin Lannister from the start. Because that's just the type of person he is.
Tell your father I'm here. Tell him the Lannisters aren't the only ones who pay their debts.
To be completely clear, I'm not saying that Oberyn is always honest to everyone, because this is a Song of Ice and Fire and Game of Thrones after all. But his emotional energy is one of honesty and passion, and even when he stands on ceremony to say some words that may not be too meaningful in and of themselves, he makes his feelings crystal clear.
People everywhere have their differences. In some places, the highborn frown upon those of low birth. In other places, the rape and murder of women and children is considered distasteful.
But of course, this contrast is far from the only reason he is so infectious and admirable. What's arguably most enticing about Oberyn is his ideology. He is in King's Landing for two things that he may actually conflate into one: revenge and justice. 13 years prior to his introduction into the story, Oberyn's sister, Elia Martell, wedded to Rhaegar Targaryen, was killed in the sack of King's Landing during Robert's Rebellion in horrifying fashion. Sir Gregor Clegane, otherwise known as the Mountain, brutally murdered Elia's children before raping her with her children's blood still on his hands, before finally killing Elia in equally gruesome fashion. It is a monstrous, inhuman act, one that bred a deep need for vengeance within the Martells, and one that cannot go without retribution in their eyes. And though the dust has settled at the present time in the story, the ones responsible are living a life of luxury and comfort, positioned at the top and protected on all sides. Yet, the Red Viper still stalks his prey. After years and years, he has done his waiting and seeks the perfect opportunity to strike. Because he needs to, because he cannot let go and he cannot live his life without vengeance. Now, he is truly fearsome, but not without reason or heart. He fathers many bastards, yet cares for all of them. He is on an arguably self-destructive quest for revenge, yet it is because he believes it will restore honor to his family and help his lost sister rest. He desires to kill for himself, but also for his family. He seeks revenge, but he also seeks justice. Cut through the combativeness, the promiscuity, the hot, vengeful nature, and Oberyn Martell is a good soul.
The whole way from Dorne, all anyone talked about was the monster that had been born to Tywin Lannister. A head twice the size of his body, a tail between his legs, claws, one red eye. The privates of both a girl and a boy. When we met your sister, she promised she would show you to us. Every day we would ask, every day she would say, soon. Then she and your brother took us to your nursery and she unveiled the freak. Your head was a bit large, your arms and legs were a bit small, but no claw. No red eye, no tail between your legs, just a tiny pink cock. We didn't try to hide our disappointment. That's not a monster, I told Cersei. That's just a baby.
In this lovely show-exclusive speech, we see an encapsulation of who Oberyn is. He may be over-the-top and exuberant, but he is not unkind and he sees things and people for what they are. He is honesty, he is truth, and he is vengeance. Unbowed, unbent, unbroken. He might not be a paragon of virtue, but he stands up for what he believes in and does away with dishonesty and injustice. And similar to Ned Stark, that is why he simply had no chance to last long in a story where only the cynical and pragmatic survive in this political landscape. His fight with the Mountain as Tyrion's champion, which I may add is far more tactically interesting and well presented in the books, ends in gut-wrenchingly appropriate fashion. He outmaneuvers the Mountain and essentially wins, but in a thematically consistent move, it is snatched away. His combat skills are not what let him down. His pride and longing did. After yelling and screaming constantly for the Mountain to say the name of the woman he murdered, he simply does not let his victory be and cannot let go without outing those who have wronged him and displaying why he is here to all. And that is what cost him. His heart and his penchant for true justice in a setting that cares not for those things. His story is one of unfulfilled internal promises, a representation of that very human need to follow one's instinct. And it is also an encapsulation of the nihilistic pointlessness of ideals in war. It is a beautiful aspect of humanity, but one that was never pragmatic enough to survive long in this story, and that's why Oberyn's character is one of the most impactful in the series. He lived without reservation and burnt too bright. His end is a reintroduction to darkness and a loss of hope for Tyrion at this point in the story, but most of all, It is a tragic snuffing out of a man so full of life and infectious passion, a dismissal of justice and the human spirit, smiling at his love and full of life one second, and skull-crushed the next. A cruel end to the life of a beautiful soul, and a reintroduction to the brutal hellscape that is A Song of Ice and Fire. Many thanks for watching.
It is a big and beautiful world. Most of us live and die in the same corner where we were born and never get to see any of it. I don't want to be most of us.